It's time for a chat with Pat.
Yeah, and today we have with us Father Edward Looney. He's a priest in the Diocese of Green Bay, a Marian theologian, author, columnist, media personality, podcaster, film enthusiast, fellow pilgrim. He has a podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Father Edward, and you can follow him at social media handle at Father Edward Looney. And he wrote an article in Catholic Exchange called Making Assumptions About the Assumption. I love it, Father Looney. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, it was a great play on words, especially, of course, in English. But really, when it comes to the Assumption of Our Lady that we just celebrated this past Saturday, we tend to make some assumptions about it.
We do. And I love, because the first one you start out with is that whole idea of, did Mary really die? And that is, every time I go places, if I'm giving a talk on Mary, this comes up. And I love that you explained so well the three theological camps and where you fall and why. So can you help our audience understand those?
Yeah, this is one of the hotly debated questions, I think. And, the Holy Father didn't do us any favor when he made the dogmatic proclamation, because at the end of the dogma, at the end of the Apostolic Constitution, he says, at the end of Mary's earthly life, she was taken body and soul into heaven. So it doesn't say whether or not she died. It kind of is very open-ended, ambiguous there, and probably for good reason, because there are these theological camps that ascribe to one position or the other. And so the three are the immortalists. And so those are individuals who would believe that Mary did not die. And so I encounter these people a lot around the Feast of the Assumption. They comment on my stuff. Like, I had one lady comment, like, only sinners die and Mary wasn't a sinner, and yada, yada. And so the immortalist position is just saying that because Mary didn't sin, that death is a consequence of sin, so then she didn't die. Now, there's two other camps that are slightly nuanced. So they're the Assumptionists and the Dormitionists. So a Dormitionist just means that Mary fell asleep. So she was in a sleep-like state, and then soon after was transferred body and soul into heaven. But the Assumptionist position is that Mary dies and then is in the tomb for just a day or two or three. Actually, some of the mystics say 4 days, and then she's taken body and soul into heaven. So, in the liturgy for the Assumption, it says, that she did not suffer the corruption of the tomb, but she would be exempt from the corruption even if she was in the tomb. So those are the three positions, and I tend to believe that Mary did at least fall asleep, if not die. So I would place myself more as an Assumptionist, only because I think that she would have wanted to share in what her son shared in. And so there are lots of different accounts, and the early preachers of the Assumption of the Greek fathers, like Andrew of Crete or John Damascene, there's this tradition that emerges where all of the apostles gather around Our Lady as she is kind of on her deathbed or her dormition bed.
Right.
And so the tradition, I think, is fairly strong that she just wasn't zapped up into heaven, but that she, enters into this sleep of death.
But Father, is there traditionally a tomb out there somewhere that people claim to be the tomb of Mary?
Yeah, there's two places in the Holy Land, actually, that are associated with this. So the first, kind of for the Western, for the Roman Catholics, it's Dormition Abbey, and so that's kind of the belief where Mary fell asleep, or died, depending if you're a Dormitionist or Assumptionist. And then all of the Assumption homilies, again, of John Damascene, Andrew of Crete, some of these great writers of the early 1,000 years of the Church, they say that there was a funeral procession, and they processed the body of Our Lady on this funeral bier and took her to her tomb. And so right at where the Church of Gethsemane is, the Church of All Nations, kind of across the street from there is this other place, the tomb of Our Lady, which is in one of the Orthodox churches.
Okay. So there is, because you never hear that. I've never heard anybody talk about Mary's tomb. I've heard them talk about her house, which takes us kind of to the next question, because people always kind of wonder, well, okay, if she was assumed into heaven, where did that actually occur, right? I mean, where was she? And I've always heard Ephesus, but you bring up some other things in this article.
Yeah, so there's a good case for Ephesus based on the writings of Anne Catherine Emmerich, and then also because Anne Catherine Emmerich, who is this German mystical visionary, she sees all of these things and she kind of gives directions. And there's this whole book about the house of Our Lady, and so there's a belief maybe she died in Ephesus, where she would have been with St. John. But again, if we go to some of these Greek homilists and church fathers, they all place it in Jerusalem, and Maria of Agreda, who is a Spanish mystic from the 1600s and 1700s, she places it also in Jerusalem. And of course, if Dormition Abbey is there and that's where the tomb is, kind of these all create the best precedents for that location of the Assumption or the Dormition of Our Lady.
So, but you said Jerusalem. So some say, well, she was in Ephesus, but she went back to Jerusalem. Is there any way to know, other than any archaeological stuff that you came across, that would tell us that?
Yeah, these are some of the great mysteries, Yeah, I don't know if we can know definitively, and of course there's going to, just as people ascribe to the three other positions, and dispute with each other, I think there's always going to be disputes whether if it was Ephesus or Jerusalem. But to me, if we have the homilists who are saying that, okay, this took place in Jerusalem, they're the earliest people that received the tradition.
Right.
And so I just have to side with them, I think.
Okay. And we've got about a minute left. Questions about how old was Mary when she died? You say this is kind of the least important of these questions, but any insight into that?
Yeah, so you could look at Maria of Agreda or Anne Catherine Emmerich about the age. I thought one was very interesting. There's a life of Mary called, The Life of Mary by St. Maximus the Confessor. And he kind of just quoted the Psalms that said 70 for those and 80 for those who are stronger. So he thought, okay, she was 80. Now, Maria of Agreda says 70, and Emmerich says 64. So, there's no agreement when it comes to the tradition on this.
And I love that you talk about these are just assumptions. These are not things that we need to know in order to believe in the Feast of the Assumption, correct?
Yeah, that's right. What we really need to know is that Mary was taken body and soul into heaven.
Well, thank you, Father Looney. This is a great article. I loved it. And thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. God bless you and your listeners.
Yeah, have a great week ahead.